Hello and welcome to Matcha Mornings, part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network. I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith, and I'm excited to dive deep on topics around holistic health, the power of food, hormone health, how the practices of yoga can impact our health and well-being, and much more. So grab your cup of tea, settle in, and let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of Matcha Mornings. I am so excited that you've decided to join me for today's episode of the show. Today on the podcast, I am very excited to be joined by Carol Baxter. She is a yoga teacher, a speaker, an energy healer, and a mind-body wellness coach known for her passionate teaching style and bold leadership. She is the founder and owner of Glow Yoga and Wellness Studios in Ontario, Canada, and she is also the author of The Confidence Project, which is an interactive journal and online program designed to empower individuals to live their best life. Carol and I connected a couple months ago. I interviewed her on one of my other podcasts, Mastering the Business of Yoga, which you can go check out through the Wander Barn Podcast Network at wanderbarn.com. If you are a yoga teacher or a yogi who thinks you might want to be a yoga teacher and you want to learn more about the business side of yoga. And Carol and I had an awesome conversation about taking her physical studio online, everything that she was doing with that, particularly during the pandemic and how things were going. So that was a super fun episode. And I wanted to have her back on Matcha Mornings so that we could talk a little bit more in detail about the Confidence Project. To me, a part of holistic health is confidence. Feeling good in your body is not just physically, it's also that mental, emotional space. And a lot of that has to do with confidence. So on this episode, we talk about Carol's journey with health and wellness. We talk about becoming a yoga teacher. We dive into what confidence is all about, what the Confidence Project is all about, and how as individuals, we can become more confident with ourselves and in our bodies. So I hope that you really enjoy this episode as much as I did. And before we dive into it, I just wanted to tell you about a podcast that is new to the Wander Barn Podcast Network. It's called People Talking People, and it's hosted by Randall Hill and Jennifer Maynard. We are so excited to welcome this podcast to the podcast network, and I hope that all of you will go and check it out. It is exactly what it sounds like. It is all about people. And this is a really fun topic for me as somebody who loves the intricacies of people and working with people. So they have, at the point of this going live, close to 10 shows live already, talking about all different topics from leadership to career changes to why we choose to follow people and so much more. So you can find People Talking People on Spotify, or you can head on over to wanderbarn.com and find it there. I would love for you to go check it out. All right, now on to the podcast episode with Carol Baxter. Welcome to the podcast today, Carol. I'm super excited to have you here with me today.
Thank you, Amanda. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to be able to chat with you again. For listeners who don't know, Carol was actually on my other podcast, Mastering the Business of Yoga, and we had a really awesome conversation about studio ownership. And now I'm excited to dive into the other side of everything that you do, Carol. And I'm curious if we can start by diving in with your health and wellness journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Geez, I feel that it's such a good question, because I feel that it's always, been part of my life. But I think I took more of a formal step into that realm when I entered yoga, like when I started practicing yoga, because, as you know, yoga brings you so much body awareness, and you start to get really in tune and in touch with what you need, on a deeper level, rather than, following like a prescription from someone else, which is what I think we all, at some point in our lives do. But ever since I started, learning yoga and then teaching yoga, that's just deepened my own body, mental health, relationship. So I've made decisions based on how I feel, in the health and wellness realm, just more intuitively since I began the journey.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what was it that first kind of inspired you to take a yoga class?
It was just a random class. Like it wasn't even something that I had planned on doing. my boyfriend, who's now my husband at the time, and I took the class together. And it was just kind of like, let's try something new. This looks good. It was like, an ad in the paper, and it was a hot yoga class, and we absolutely loved it. Like loved it. So I went from being like a runner, like running all the time, to hot yoga all the time. So it was like a big switch, an immediate and big switch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's so interesting with, yoga teachers and people whose whole worlds are really in the yoga space now, how it's like at one point, it's so funny to think about. It was just like, something you'd never done before, and just this thing that you're going to randomly try. I always find that aspect of with yoga teachers so interesting.
It is completely. And, it's changed a lot for me over the years. I mean, I feel like, yoga is my first real spiritual love, and I practice it. Do I practice it every day? No, I absolutely don't. My health and wellness now is more of a blend of cardio, breath work, meditation. It just kind of depends on the day. And again, it depends on what I feel I need on a deeper level. So it's interesting how it shifts,
100%. I can definitely relate to that. And I think when I first started practicing yoga, I was very much interested in the physical aspect of it. I went to it for a workout, and any class that didn't feel like it was working my body in the way that I wanted, I'd be that extra person adding in chaturangas and, clenching my muscles when they didn't need to be clenched. And it's so funny because I'm just not that practitioner anymore. They're like, you can like kick up into handstand, you can stay in down dog or child's pose. And I feel like I'm like 50-50, like child's pose.
And it feels good, right? Because you're like, yeah, this is what I need. And I think that's the key is really discovering what you need in the moment. And I think that you can become so healthy from tapping in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And I think that is, to me, one of the things that's really important about the practice for me is like listening to what my body's needing and understanding that there's a lot of different ways to practice yoga, not just the physical side of it, but within the physical realm of asana, there's a ton of different things that I can do depending on if I'm tired, if I'm stressed, if I'm, not sleeping well, if I've got a lot of energy to burn, there's a kind of a practice for everything. And as opposed to just treating it as like, oh, I need to burn some calories so I look good in this dress. I'm just like, I just want to like feel good in my body,
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a great space to be in.
Yeah, 100%. And so you have a book called The Confidence Project, which is an incredible book. And I would love to hear kind of where the idea for The Confidence Project came from and kind of what was like the birth of that idea.
Well, it's so interesting that we're having this podcast call today because last night, I'll just tell you that in my online yoga academy, we have a weekly inner circle. And the feedback from a lot of the participants and teachers was that let's do a call around confidence and let's talk about, what it means, and let's bring your book in. So it's all really fresh on my mind today because we had such a great discussion. But, I think that in essence, confidence is understanding how to connect to the part of you that's unchangeable. And that's what spiritual practice does for us. That's what quieting down and tapping in and strengthening, our inner world. That's how we become truly confident because, I've coached so many different people over the years and taught so many different classes and led trainings and things. And the one thing that I found that was everyone's sort of issue, if you want to call it an issue, or more, I guess blockage is a better word, was fear, fear of stepping into who you can become or who you want to be. And the fear comes from the lack of confidence and the lack of inner belief in who you truly are and what you can accomplish and how powerful we really are. And I thought, my whole journey up until this point, and I mean, it's still continuing, was to to become confident and to connect to that place inside of me that I never knew really how to, right? And once I did, you know, it was like everything started changing and shifting, and it's still to this day changing and shifting, because it's this just inner essence of you that's on this journey that's, you know, going through different phases in life and facing different challenges and triumphs and things like that. But the essence of who you are never changes. And when we can tap into that, we start to become very resilient, very confident, and we can step out into the world and shine our light, you know, and be who we're supposed to be. But the lack of understanding how to do that creates a lot of fear in people, which is, you know, a lack of confidence. So the book really is a compilation of diving into who you are a little deeper.
But yeah, that 100% makes sense to me. And I was just thinking about kind of my own experience around the concept of confidence. And I had a pretty, I guess, like profound moment. I read The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden for the first time in 2014 while I was down in South America. And my now husband, boyfriend at the time, had recommended reading it. He had read it and said like, oh, I got so much out of this. And I was like, oh, I don't really think like I need this. Like I have good self-esteem. I'm super confident in myself. And I started reading and realizing that, you know, I actually wasn't as confident in who I was as I had thought I was. And being able to kind of step into that a little bit more, I feel like allowed me to make, you know, some big kind of scary decisions in my life that led me on the path that I am now. And it's still a reminder to me like all the time of, you know, there's moments when I still don't feel confident in myself or what I'm doing. And I've thought a lot about from like the business side of things, how, or from like as an entrepreneur, how, you know, people always talk about like the fear of failure. And sometimes I feel like there's like a fear of success as well, which is that confidence piece of not believing fully in yourself and in your capabilities.
That's so true. That's so true. The fear of being seen is huge for a lot of people. And, you know, I battled that a lot of my life. I only, you know, really started to step into that fear and move through it when I began teaching yoga. You know, and you know, you always remember your first yoga class, right? And how teaching your first yoga class and how, you know, nervous you might have been or the things that were running through you. And, you know, I remember thinking at the time, like, this is good fear for me. This is really good fear because I'm safe. You know, there's nothing here that's going to hurt me in any way. It's like I'm moving through these old limiting beliefs about who I am and who I'm going to be today in this moment teaching this class. And you know what happens, right? I mean, I'm sure you've had so many experiences. It's like you go through that fear and you do whatever it is that is causing you the lack of belief in yourself, and you feel amazing. You know, you're like, oh my God, like that's just another layer that I've just released. And you're more confident the next time you do it. So I feel that, you know, it's never really done. It's always something that we're all working on. And I truly believe that the more that we step through these fears, the more the universe responds, and it gives us the next thing, right, that we're ready for. So it's a journey. The confidence, I believe, is a true journey back to who you really are, and you know, self-belief and self-love, and you know, shining out your brilliant light to as many people as you possibly can without feeling like you shouldn't, you know, or so it's an awesome journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And one of the things that I'm curious about is, I guess, kind of like your journey with confidence in terms of like creating this book. So I know you've talked a little bit about, you know, kind of where the idea came from. But how did you really dive into like creating a book and, you know, creating something that could help other people build up their confidence based on your experience?
So I believe and you know, have learned and experienced that everything is energetic in life. Every single thing is energetic. How we feel, the people we meet, the things that we take on. So if that's the truth, then we have to work on our energetic system in the body. And that leads us back to the chakras. So I I based the book around the chakra system so that people could begin exploring these different energy centers and understanding, why they might feel blocked in a certain area and what they can do to strengthen that chakra and then move on. And I mean, it's never really done either. I mean, there's always things that are going to make us feel, a little insecure or unsafe, when we're like, for example, you're moving, right? So there's a little bit of, ungroundedness there because you're not settled yet. And that's like a root chakra. A root chakra is a little bit imbalanced there. So what can we do to rebuild that energy center and then, move up to the next one? So I think that, the book is a gentle way to start exploring pieces of your energy. And it's basically a journal that you can go back to at any time. Like even if you did it once, we were talking about this last night on the call, it's like, you can go back another year later, or a few months later, and see the difference in how you feel in these different areas and re-journal or recreate, what you'd like to see happen. So I really based it around rebuilding your energy and exploring your energetic system. And then, I talk about things like the power of the mind, right? And, how things like our limiting beliefs, stuff that we've adopted since we were very, very young, has created the future that we're living right now. Stuff like that's so important because we don't recognize, unless we've done the work, how committed we are to limiting beliefs and agreements that we've made at a young age. And once you start to recognize that, different pieces of your life start to fit into place. And you say, oh, okay, that's why, I didn't do this, or that's why I said no here. Or, like you start to kind of put the pieces back together again of where you've been. I also talk about the emotions and how important it is to be able to fully feel everything that you feel and to do that in a way that's safe for you, but that is definitely expressive of what's happening for you in the moment or in the time that is. Because we're normally not taught that at a young age either. So we go through a lot of energetic suppression from a young age, and we feel that it's not safe to say how I really feel about this situation. Maybe it's better to stay quiet and be the good girl or the good boy. And those kinds of decisions build energy up in the body and causes problems later on in life. So it's really, the journal is really about undoing and reclaiming who you are. And, I pieced everything together based on what I had experienced up until, that point in time, so that I can write and deliver something that I'm confident in because I've gone through it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that, just from the perspective of a yogi and a yoga teacher, I love that you've used the chakra system. That really connects with me a lot in a way that I've done quite a bit of self-development around this, or personal development. And I love like everything that I've done and everything that I've learned, because obviously you can get takeaways from everything that you dive into, but that piece really connects with me in a way that other books and other programs haven't. And one of the things that I really love that you're talking about is this idea of being in balance or out of balance. And, the idea of, I'm moving right now or getting ready to move. And, of course that throws off your energy in some ways. And I feel it, in my work this morning. I feel that I'm not as grounded as I normally am. There's something that feels like everything feels a little bit more disorganized and a little bit of disarray. And there's all sorts of examples of things that can throw you off in different ways that can impact, not only just your confidence, but really like the way you show up in your life, or maybe your business as an entrepreneur, the way that you show up with your partner, your family, your friends. And sometimes we're just like, oh, why is that person off, or what's going on with them? And I think being able to kind of understand energetically what's going on, and then understand kind of energetically how to tune into that, identify it, and then be able to settle that a little bit can help you show up in a way that feels more like yourself, like your authentic self.
Absolutely. It's so true. I love what you said there about, understanding, what might be happening for that person, and that just brings in that compassion piece, that heart-centered chakra energy of, okay, maybe the person that, cut me off in an erratic way, has to get somewhere that's really urgent instead of, that instant reaction that a lot of us have, right? And I mean, we've all had it, like, oh my God, I can't believe that person just did that. But, it's just taking a breath and taking a step and saying, okay, who knows? Who's walked in that person's shoes? You don't really ever know what people are going through. And I think that the more that you tap into your own self and learn how to clear, strengthen, and create new space in your physical, mental, and spiritual forms, you naturally open up to compassion for others, and you move away from reacting as much and more into observation and more like neutral mindset around things, which is such a beautiful space to be in.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I feel like I used to be so reactive to every little situation with other people. Great example of somebody cutting you off. You're just, hammering on the horn. Maybe you're giving them the finger, you're yelling at them from your car. And I've just realized that person, cuts you off. Maybe they feel bad about it for a second, but more likely, they're probably just not even aware of the frustration that they've caused you. And the only thing that you can control in that situation is how you feel and how you respond. And I feel like I just got to a point where I was like, I don't have time to be mad at everyone in the world. So I'm just going to be like, okay, that person has something going on. Clearly they're not aware of the fact that there's other people around, and I'm just going to let it go. And sometimes it's easier than others, right? That's a simple example of something that's pretty easy for me to let go. There's certainly examples that aren't in my life, but it's definitely nice to be able to release it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And it feels so good, even when you have those moments, right, where you can just let it go. It's like, wow, that feels so good. And, just your reflection there, Amanda, is awesome, because you recognize that, you've come so far, in that journey. And that's awesome. That's a great space to be in.
Well, thank you. It's certainly not perfect, as we've been talking about, but it's a work in progress. And for anyone listening who's maybe feeling people cutting you off is something that really sets you on fire. If you can start releasing that, I promise you'll feel more freedom in your life.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
And so in terms of, kind of coming back to this idea of confidence, I'm curious, one of the things that I love about your book, and I know I've mentioned a couple of things that I like, but I feel like I really enjoy the fact that it does have journal prompts and is this thing that you can kind of come in and out of. You don't necessarily have to do it start to finish to get benefits out of it. You can kind of come in and take little pieces out of it. For somebody who's maybe not familiar or who's doing confidence work for the first time and maybe isn't super familiar with the chakra system, do you have kind of, some tips for identifying and kind of tuning in to figuring out what's going on with our bodies and what's going on with our mental state so that we can start bringing in more confidence into our lives?
I think that, that's a great question. I feel that being a witness to how you feel every single day is the first step. So being aware of your dis-ease and how it shows up and when it shows up is really important, because that starts identifying, something isn't right. Something's, not in balance for you. And that's usually the first thing that people start to recognize before they embark on the spiritual journey or, the journey within to figure out who am I? What have I done? Where am I right now and where am I going? It's more or less, anytime your body is showing you something, your mental state as well. But, when you're having persistent physical pains in different areas for no reason, or you're constantly, getting sick with something, I liken it to the body as being this vessel of energy. And if we're not releasing the energy that we take on every single day, or in fact, the energy that we've accumulated over a lifetime through inner work, then the body starts to talk to us and it starts to say, hey, like, I can't hold this anymore. It's time to do some work, right? Or, a busy mind, a constant busy mind, you're not able to look at a book and read a page in that book without, being taken off somewhere with a thought. I mean, I know that personally because that used to be me. And that was one of my indicators of, oh my gosh, like, why can't I just read a few pages of this book? I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but like you go through like 3 or 4 pages and you're like, I don't even know what just happened in this novel. I've got to go back.
100%.
And I think back to those times and I look at the stress that I was experiencing when I was in a job that made me so unhappy that I was having like, panic attacks and things about going to work. And it's all of these things that take you out of balance because that's not how we're supposed to feel. It's our birthright to be happy. It's our birthright to be confident and to feel free in who we are. And when we don't, it's a big sign to start looking within and to start doing, some gentle digging into what needs to change for me. And I think my book does a great job of asking those questions in gentle ways. Like I start the book off by talking about, who did you want to be as a child? Like, what was your superhero? Who did you look up to? And then what happened along the way? Because whoever you look up to, whoever you admire the light in, is exactly your own reflection. You have all of that in you. That's why it lights you up so much. So, I start with that. And then I talk about building an avatar, which is like your own personal idea of what you want to be. And we build it throughout the book because it's important to have a vision. It's important to understand, who you really want to be in the world. What would make you happy, peaceful, balanced, all of those great things. And then continuing to think about that avatar as you go through things like the chakra system, and what would Amanda look like with a full heart, a radiant full heart? What would she look like with, an open throat chakra? What would you be doing with that, that clarity and that freedom? How would you feel if you felt so safe and rooted and connected in your home and your job? Things like that are easy to achieve. We just have to start really digging into who we are and who we've become.
Yeah, I love that. That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I just loved listening to that. And I think that everything you talked about is so aligned with how I feel about this. And I love that you said the first piece comes with awareness, because I think that is like really the first thing for almost all personal development. And I think that that's one of the major lessons and takeaways I have from my yoga practice is just being in tune with my body, with my mind. And I mean, I'm certainly not perfect. I can 100% relate to the book thing. It's actually kind of interesting that you say that, because I feel like I can get so lost in my head that I just will have like no idea what's going on in this thing I read. And then I'm like, damn it, I have to reread this chapter. But recently my husband and I, we've been living in Latin America off and on over the last couple of years. So we've been learning Spanish, and I started reading books in Spanish. And it's not my native language. I'm not fluent in it. So it really requires focus. Like it almost feels like I'm learning to read all over again, but as an adult, which is so much more frustrating. And I've really noticed the importance of, because my thoughts still happen, fluidly in English. So it's like, I really don't know what's going on in the book if I'm like, off in a field thinking about my day. And then I'm trying to read this book in Spanish. So it's been a really good exercise for me to like really pull myself into the present moment.
Yeah, that's I admire you for doing that. I thought about doing that over the past few months, but I actually couldn't get it in with all of the other stuff I was doing. That's great. That's great.
It's really hard. So thank you for that. I have a Kindle and it tells you like at the bottom if you want kind of just how long the chapter is going to be, because you obviously can't like flip pages the same way as a physical book. And it's just always interesting. Like in general, I've been reading in English. So my Kindle knows my reading speed in English. And so every time I open a Spanish book, it'll start like, oh, this chapter is like 5 minutes. And then as I start reading, it's like 5 minutes for ages. And then it starts slowly going up before it starts going down again. And that's just like, kind of a hit to the ego a little bit, but it's getting easier the more I do it.
That's awesome. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone has that issue, just start reading in the second language and then it'll really help. Or, just dive into the awareness of that and maybe do some other exercises that might be a little bit more straightforward than learning a second language. But yeah, I think that bringing awareness into your mind and body is so important. Like, I feel sometimes really frustrated when I don't know exactly what my body or my mind needs, specifically probably my body. But I think that when I actually sit down and take the moments to connect, I do know exactly what I need. And it's just a matter of actually having those tools in your toolbox and then making time to do it. Because for me, especially like when I'm really busy, go, those are the moments when I'll be the most on edge or like the most frustrated or the most short-tempered and like really need those practices. And I'll completely justify that I don't have, or I'll rationalize that I don't have the time in my day to actually work on that stuff because I have so much on the go. And I've just really recognized like those are the moments I need that stuff the most.
Yeah. I mean, like the truth is we always know what we need. We know what we need more than anyone in our lives knows what we need. But it's just like you said, it's building the toolbox to sit with it and to listen inside to find out what it is you're searching for. I think it's just really, really important. So like, I talk about in the book, like, do one thing every single day. And I say this even like to my teacher trainers, to my coaching clients, like do one thing every single day that connects you within. And start with like 5 simple minutes, and you're going to grow to really, really love that time. And that 5 minutes is going to expand to like 10 minutes to 20 minutes, and on, because you'll find that you're building up an inner resilience. You're doing things like strengthening your will and strengthening your central nervous system to deal with stress in everyday life. And it's just so, so important to establish a deep relationship with who we are, so that we can figure out what it is we do need, and what we do want in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so for people who are, I guess more new to these practices and, obviously they should get a copy of your book and we can talk about that in a little bit, but what are some other I guess like tools, techniques, tips that you have for starting to build these practices and start working on your confidence?
Yeah. So like, I think that an easy thing to do every single day, underneath that first one, connecting within, is to get involved with your breath, because the breath is what sustains us in life. It's our prana. It regulates our life force. And I talk about different techniques in the book. A very simple one is to breathe in to a count of 4 and then exhale to a count of 6. And you can do this anytime. So easy. It strengthens the part of us that wants to relax and calm down. It's a great breath for stress awareness, like for releasing stress if you feel stressed or anxiety. I would say the breath. And then I also talk about, a breath for energizing in the book too. So something that you can do in the morning or at some point during the day if you need a little bit more energy. And it's so easy, and it's connecting within. That simple thing is connecting within. I think also that there's, and this was me too when I first started, I needed to spend all of this time, doing, prana work, yoga work, because, 5 minutes just wasn't enough. It just didn't feel like it was doing anything. But in actuality, it really was, so just committing to a little bit of breath work every single day, or like a little bit of movement. I talk about different movement techniques in the book too that are very easy to do. And you can take any single one of them and just try it, and build your own even individual practice. And then, that would be like number one. And then the second thing I would say is to journal, right? Like you can journal in the book, or if you have your own journal, just becoming aware of your thought patterns and your behaviors and anything that causes you dis-ease, which is what we just spoke about a little while ago. Like anything that brings you out of the state of balance. Like, why am I not happy? Why am I in this state of stress or suffering? And once you start journaling and kind of opening up those floodgates, you'd be surprised at what comes out. I don't know if you're a journaler, but it's a way of processing. It's a way of coaching yourself through whatever's happening in your life. Very easy to do.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I've been a big fan of journaling for probably, I guess, about 6 years now. And I'm not as diligent with it as, I think some people, or as maybe I would like to be. I think there's definitely like periods of time where I'll go, a couple weeks or even a month where I haven't written anything in my journal. And that's when I feel like things are, get really kind of dusty, I guess you could say. And it takes me like a little longer to like wipe that dust away so that I can like see clearly into the mirror again. And I definitely feel best when I'm journaling every couple of days. And I think that if you can get into the habit, it's really amazing. Like it's really amazing to have, like a safe space to just write whatever you need to write. Like if you need to write something that's mean or that you would never say out loud, like you can do that. Your journal is not judging you. It's there for that.
Yeah, no, journaling. Oh my gosh, it's easy and it's so therapeutic. It really is. It really, really is. And then the third thing, and I talked about this actually last night a lot, was recognizing the difference between fear. So like a fear that makes you feel unsafe, and the fear that is resistance to the unknown. So, I can always see my growth, my own personal growth, in episodes where I'm feeling like I did when I taught my first yoga class. Well, maybe not that nervous because I was super nervous, but
oh my gosh, I know, right? It's so terrifying.
It really is. It totally is.
But you have to do it. There's no way to like know what that's going to be like until you actually do it. Like I think that you can prep and you can practice your words and you can teach the poses as much as you want, but until you're actually doing it, you just don't really know what it's going to be like.
Yeah. And it's like, that's how you're growing though. When you say yes to something that makes you feel like so nervous about being seen, or the possibility of not succeeding, whatever succeeding means in your eyes. When you step through it and you do it, you've moved past it, and you'll never feel that way again. It'll be a little less the next time, and then a little less the next time, and then it just keeps dropping and dropping until you've conquered it. But it's like saying yes to things that make you feel like that are so powerful, so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So
100%. Yeah. I'm a big fan of stepping out of your comfort zone in whatever way that is for you. Like for me, I really love to travel. So I like to push myself outside of my comfort zone through my travels. And I've traveled a lot at this point. So just like going somewhere new, depending on the place, of course, doesn't always just make me feel uncomfortable because I'm pretty confident with that. But then, I can do something that there's lots of things I can do from there that make me feel uncomfortable. Like even I travel with my husband most of the time. So sometimes it's just going and doing something on my own will put me in that position. And it's interesting because those are the moments where you like feel yourself grow. And then, from there, you learn to trust yourself and you learn to understand your abilities. And I think that that's like the link to that confidence piece, right? Like it seems really scary maybe as a young woman to think about going to, I don't know, like Indonesia by yourself. And then you do it and you realize like, oh, I'm so capable of doing this. I don't need a parent. I don't need a partner. I don't need a spouse. I don't need a friend to be here with me because I know how to make friends. I know how to take care of myself. And that's the type of thing that makes you feel like you really stepped into your power as a human. And same with teaching. It's like you're so scared to teach and then you teach the class and you see people's like faces light up at the end and you're like, oh my God, I just did it. Like I can do this.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like, I feel like it's the best thing in the world. Like this past year, I was on CTV, your morning, and I was like super nervous about that. I was going to be on national television, and I remember saying to myself as I was waiting in the green room, like, okay, this is great because you're growing again. So
Yeah.
if you're not afraid of anything, if you need to step more out of your comfort zone and find the thing that you feel you can't do and do it. Totally do it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, being on national TV would definitely give me that like I'm going to poop my pants type feeling. So that's amazing that you did that.
Yeah. But super grateful to be asked. So that was great.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something to remember too, is like, especially with these types of opportunities that we might get with our career or when somebody asks us to be a part of something, like that person believes in you and what you have to offer. And I feel like us showing up for ourselves in a big way is that thing that really makes us like, yeah, I did that thing. Like you went on TV and talked to people. Like that's so cool.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, we were talking about the book, The Confidence Project. So it was.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
Amazing. And so we've talked about the awareness piece, breath work and movements, journaling. Is there any other tips for getting started with building confidence? I guess stepping outside of your comfort zone.
Stepping outside of your comfort zone. And yeah, like just really, really trying to do something that connects you within every single day, and that's through the breath and the movement or however it is that it shows up for you. Just taking the time to honor who you are and to honor the relationship that you're starting to build, right? Because it's really about building a new relationship with you. And, from that comes all kinds of great things. People around you start to feed off of your energy because you feel different and you start acting different. You will probably start creating, new sacred boundaries in your life and, really respecting yourself and what you need from a new space. So it's like there's so much stuff and so much good stuff to be had when we embark on this journey within. And there's I think we pretty much covered it, but I think that it's a never ending journey, I guess, is what I want to say. And it does get easier, but you're always given the next thing to help you move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I wanted to touch on what you brought up about boundaries, because I feel like that's an interesting aspect that maybe we don't always traditionally think of as a part of confidence. But that's been some of the work that I've been doing throughout the pandemic, because I really realized being kind of more stuck at home that my boundaries I'd set were really around my lifestyle. So things like, oh, I'm going to the gym, I'm going to yoga, I'm going to hang out with a friend, I'm going to do this thing, like leaving the house, versus when I'm just in the house on my computer all the time. It was really hard for me to set boundaries. And I have definitely felt like the impact on my mental health. And I think my confidence also by not setting those boundaries for myself, and not in a way that I want to be super rigid with the way that I live or the way that I interact with my work. But it's so important to honor who you are and what you need. And I think that that's like a really key takeaway that from what I just heard you say.
Yeah, completely. And, we don't really know what we need until we start investigating what it is. And then those boundaries naturally start occurring, because I think that we're taught, and I think especially as women, we're taught to make sure everything is okay, right, for everyone else. And, it starts to wear thin, right, as you get older, because you're not taking care of you. And then how can you take care of everyone else? So the boundary piece comes in when you start to forge that relationship within, and you recognize that, no, you know what, like, I don't need to see this person tonight. Like I need just some time to myself, or I am not cooking dinner tonight. How about that?
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just honoring who you are. And I think that everyone needs sacred boundaries, and they naturally start presenting themselves to you when they're necessary. Just like you said, I mean, going through this whole pandemic and recognizing, oh my gosh, like my boundaries aren't in place.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting how that feels when they're not.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think it definitely, and setting boundaries, I think helps you believe in yourself, just sort of like we were talking about with, stepping out of your comfort zone, like being able to say no to something that doesn't serve you in that moment makes you build trust in yourself that you can do that again. And I think the concept of having trust within ourselves, with ourselves, is a really interesting one, because just kind of looking at it from the outside, you might think that it's very natural for us to trust ourselves. But I think in many ways, like, we really have to build that up. And for me, it's been, I don't need to answer this email right now. Like, it's fine if I answer them tomorrow. Things will not explode tonight. The world will not implode if I don't sit here on my computer doing this thing. And also not rationalizing the use of my time, because so much of my boundaries was around these things that I was doing. Therefore, I felt like, okay, this is a legitimate reason to not answer a text message or an email or a phone call, versus sitting on my couch, like watching Netflix or just like doing nothing, as we've been doing for the last couple of months. It's like, oh, well, I'm just watching Netflix. Like, I might as well just deal with this thing. And I feel like slowly doing that over time, I've really felt how that's worn on me. And, so now I'm going in the opposite direction of like, however I spend my time is a valuable use of my time. It's how I'm choosing to use it. And, these are my hours that I work in. And if you need me outside of that, I'm sorry, I'm not available.
That's right. And I think that's such a great boundary to put up, and I've suffered from that as well over time. And I remember I was working with this one woman for a while, and she had set up on her email just an automatic response after 5 p.m. that basically just said, I'm spending time with my family. I will get back to your email tomorrow. And I was like, that's awesome. Like, you just think, wow. Like, I think, I adopted that from her, because I thought that's a great way to show people that that's okay. Like, we should all be doing that.
Yeah, 100%. And it's so interesting, because I think that sometimes we think that people are going to be like frustrated or annoyed by that response. But I love how your response was like, yes, you go, girl. And I am stealing this, or I'm borrowing this from you.
That's right. Yeah, completely. And I think the more confident we are in those boundaries, the less we even care. You're like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care what that person thinks. It's about how I feel, and they'll just have to deal with their own stuff, right? So yeah, no, it's interesting how things shift and change over time.
Yeah, 100%. And so we've talked quite a bit about the book at this point. I'd love to hear a little bit about like what it was like writing a book, and then also if you can share where people can go to purchase it, that would be awesome.
Sure, absolutely. I can say it was probably one of the most daunting tasks that I've ever taken on. It's just I was writing it for about a year and a half. And then I just put it down, and I was like, no, I'm not doing this. This is just so much work. And I keep revising everything, and which is what an author does, right? Like, you go back over everything and you redo it because you think it sounds different or it's better this way. So so much of that made me kind of put it down for a while. And then, my editor had gotten in touch with me. She was out in New York, and she said, you really are you going to do this, or are you not going to do this? And I said, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to totally do it. And so then I just committed, and I got over that. What's the word? Self-sabotage, because I think I was dealing a little bit with that, kind of like, oh, well, I don't need to, how that comes up sometimes. Like, I don't need to do that. It's too much work. It's, blah, 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 all the excuses. And I was like, no, wait a minute. This is a pattern. This is, a part of me that doesn't want me to succeed. It wants me to stay the same. So when she got in touch with me, I kind of like, got a hold of that. It was like, no, I'm doing this. So I just, every day I would like sit down and work on it. And, it was very rewarding, to be done, like to send it off and then to get it actually in my hands, was I'll never forget it. It was like one of the best moments of my life, getting this book in my hands. And then, we ended up having this huge launch party here in town, and like so many people came, and it was just awesome. The process, as daunting as it was, it taught me a lot about myself, and it helped me break through, another layer, because putting yourself out there like that is difficult. It's a different putting yourself out there. There's a judgment piece. There's insecurities around, explaining things about your life to people. But, it just kept helping me work through that, and recognizing that, my story, like if my story helps one woman, then I've done my job, and who cares about the people it didn't help? If it's helped to change a life, then it's been worth it. The whole thing has been worth it. And it totally has, but, I'm definitely thinking about writing another book. I've got all kinds of ideas that I've been playing with right now. And it's inspiring, because now I feel like, I can do this. This is something I love, and something that I'll do more of.
Amazing. I love that. It's like, you wrote this book that helps people kind of understand, building confidence. And now you have confidence in yourself to build a book, which is so, so amazing to hear. And yeah, I was just smiling on the other side of the call here, thinking about, your labor and your love and your blood, sweat, and tears going into something physical that you get to hold in your hands, and being able to be like, I wrote this. Like, that's so, so awesome. So congrats on getting through that, because it sounds like it was not easy in times.
Thanks, Amanda. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's the truth. It wasn't, but totally worth it for sure.
Yeah, that's what I've talked to some other people for my other podcasts that I've written books, and that seems to always be the consensus, is that it is very much worth it, but almost never easy. No. And I think that it's a reminder that all good things in life require work.
That's it. It's so true. So, so true. A labor of love for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And so if people want to get their hands on a copy of your book, where can they go to find that?
So Amazon, actually. Amazon has the book. You can order. I know a couple people ordered some a few days ago. And if you want to, learn more about me, carolbaxter.ca and Carol Baxter Glow on Instagram.
Amazing. I will make sure there's links for all of that. And then you also own a studio locally in Whitby, Ontario, correct?
And it's an online studio now. So we have a whole academy online. Yeah, Glow Yoga Wellness. So I'd love to connect with people there for sure.
Amazing. So regardless of where you are, you can find Carol online, practice some yoga, do some confidence work, all that good stuff.
Thanks, Amanda. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Thank you for your time, and thank you for this amazing conversation.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Matcha Mornings. To find links mentioned in this episode, show notes, photos, and more, head on over to wanderbarn.com/podcast/matcha-mornings. To be the first to know about brand new episodes of Matcha Mornings, subscribe on your podcast app. If you enjoyed this episode of the show, please leave a review or send me an email at wanderbarn@gmail.com with the subject line Matcha Mornings. To follow along with me, Amanda Kingsmith, you can find me on Instagram at Amanda Kingsmith to learn more about other fun projects I'm working on. To find more great podcasts like this one on topics such as travel, the business of yoga, cryptocurrency, and more, head on over to wanderbarn.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon.